right. So, what do your grandkids call you?
Mom.
And how did you get that name?
Well, because Jada, our first grandchild, had all these great grandparents. She had about 3 or 4, and plus her grandparents, and had a double set with on Mary Sue's side because of the divorce. All the names were used up. There was Nanas and all the Mimis, and all the names were used up. So I thought, okay, the only thing that's not being used is Grandma. Well, Grandma was being used, so I said, okay, Grandmom. I like that. And Cecil can be Granddad. So that's what we told Jada from the time she was born, that we were Grandmom and Granddad. Well, kids can't pronounce R's very well, which I didn't know at the time. And she couldn't say Gran. So she ended up saying just Mom. And for Cecil, she said and Dad. And it stuck. Then when Jacob came along, it was already established. He didn't have any choice.
All right.
Isn't that right?
Yes, it is. All right. So, where were you born at?
I was born in Bell County, which is the next county over, in a community called Red Ranger, Texas. It's in between Rogers and Zobchigville.
Say that again.
It's in between Rogers and Zobchigville.
All right. What is Zobchigville?
It's just a little community. That's where Green Sausage House is. That's their claim to fame. That's where we get all those goodies.
All right. And were you born in a house, in a hospital?
No, I was born in a house, but the doctor came to the house. Dr. Wells was a lady that had a practice out of Rogers, and she came in and delivered me at my house.
Cool. What town did you grow up in?
Well, I grew up in the only town I was near was Buckholz and Rogers, but predominantly Buckholz. But we moved 6 times in my 11 years of school. So
where all did you move to?
Well, we moved from one side of Red Ranger to the other, just on the opposite side of it. And then we moved a little further down the road, which made it closer to Buckholz. And then we moved to Yearleton, which is where Jada and Sam live now. I was there at age 10. Well, it was my 5th, 6th, and 7th, and 8th grades where I went to. And then we moved to Sharp, and then we moved to Buckholz. But it was all around.
Okay, so all in the same area.
Yes.
Okay. What did your parents do for a living?
They were sharecroppers, farmers.
Did they make a lot of money?
Not hardly. However, I will tell you a story. My dad didn't want to get in debt. And when I was about 5 or 6, he had the opportunity to buy an adjoining farm. And Mother wanted to buy it really bad because they told her they didn't even ask for a down payment. He would just pay the payments at the end of each crop. He didn't want to go in debt. And he wouldn't do it. Mother, I don't think she ever forgave him for that.
Why didn't he want to?
I don't know. I guess he was frightened at the idea of owing that much money,
How many siblings did you have?
I had 3. I had an older brother, 5 years older, a younger sister, 5 years younger, and another brother, 10 years younger.
How did all of y'all get to school?
We walked to the bus, and then the bus took us to school everywhere we lived.
Was it a one-room schoolhouse, or was it multiple classes?
In my case, the first grade was a one-room schoolhouse. And Gene, my older brother, and I went to this school, one-room schoolhouse that had 1st through 8th grade. But then we moved. So in my 2nd grade, I went to Rogers, and 3rd grade. We moved just down the road, but it put me in the Rogers school district instead of that little country school. And so the next 2 years, I went to Rogers, and for 2nd and 3rd grade. And in the 4th grade, we moved to Yearleton, and that was back to a country school, one-room schoolhouse, 1st through 8th grade in Yearleton. And I was to be in the 4th grade. So we enrolled in school, and the teacher sent a note to my parents, wanted to talk to them, said she didn't have any other kids in the 4th grade that year. And I guess it would be easier on her if she didn't have to prepare for just one student. So she said, obviously I was a good student, so can we just put her in the 5th grade? At least try it. In other words, skip the 4th grade. And so they did. Mother said, okay, we'll try it. And but at the end of that year, that 5th grade, that school dissolved. Yay. And I went to Cameron for the next 3 years.
All right. When you were in school, did your mom make your clothes? Or did you buy clothes from the store?
No, we pretty well made everything. I probably didn't have bought clothes till I was in high school.
Do you remember the first bought clothes you had?
Not really, but I do know that. See, back then, when you bought flour, you bought it in 25 or 50-pound bags, and they were in these nice printed Flourdy or whatever bags that if you didn't have the money to buy material, you could always make it out of flour sacks. And some of them were really pretty. So I didn't mind that.
What kind of chores did you have to do growing up?
Well, everything that you do on the farm.
Hey, Bree. Who just came in there?
Yep.
Go ahead, tell us about
her. One of my main jobs was I had to gather the eggs every day. I had to go sometime I had to go and get the cows in. And Mother usually milked, especially in the morning, she always milked. And in the evenings, she usually milked, but there were times when I had to milk. And then, of course, you had to feed. There was the feeding of the chickens. There was the feeding of the cows and the pigs. But I didn't slop the pigs, but I did put out corn or whatever for them.
Did you have an indoor bathroom or an outhouse?
We had an outhouse till I was in high school.
All right, and you got indoor plumbing then?
Well, where we lived, there was indoor plumbing, yes.
Okay. So, did you buy groceries or did you eat the food on the farm?
We did buy some groceries, but basically, we ate off the farm because Mother always had a big garden, and we raised cattle. And so back then, we had what was called the beef club, and there would be I don't know how many people would get into a club, neighbors, because everybody's in the same boat. And what they do is that one person would kill a steer. They would feed out a steer for the beef club, and they'd kill it, and then they'd divide the pieces of the cuts of the meat. Whether one time you might get steak, next time you might get roast, next time you might get, whatever else, whatever the other pieces were.
Who's that keeps opening up the door? Who is that?
That is Bree.
How old is she right now?
She's 3. The 3B. Bree, that's 3. I thought Brooklyn was going to keep her under tabs, but she didn't.
No, it's all right. So you had the meat club,
and anyway, especially that was in the summers.
Okay.
We would have a beef club because that's when they would feed them out. And so by the time you went all the way around, you had gotten every cut, of the meat. Somebody kept books on all of that.
And what about like the skin and the hide and the bones and everything?
Well, the skin and the hide, they threw that away. And
okay.
So
they didn't make leather out of it, or
no? Yeah. And then in the winter we would kill a hog, but that we didn't share.
Okay.
They would butcher a hog and make bacon and ham and sausage and there they used all the elements
of the hog.
Yes, you had brains, to scrambled eggs and brains. You had liver. You had just all the different pieces of the meat. You even had pig's feet and pig's ears, stuff like that you would pickle.
All right, what is your favorite and least favorite part of a pig?
I don't know, but as a kid, I loved the pickled ears. But least favorite was some of those, like sweetbread and brains and liver and all those things. I wasn't real fond of them. I ate them because you ate whatever, but I wasn't real crazy about them.
So did y'all have a refrigerator or a freezer or an ice box? How did you store
We
produce?
had an ice box most until probably somewhere in high school we finally got a refrigerator. But the ice box was that, and that way on Friday when they killed the meat, you would go to town, you'd get this 50-pound block of ice so that it would keep your meat till you ate it up for that week. And that icebox kept it cold.
Wow. So did y'all have a washing machine for your clothes?
Oh, well, you did have a washing machine. I don't know at what point Mother got one. As by the time I was big enough to remember, she had one. And what it was is just a big tub that had a wringer on the end of it. And you had to heat your water in a iron pot, and then carry the hot water over into the wash machine, and then the washer would agitate it. I guess it was. Well, at first it was manual, but then we got electric one. That would do the agitating and then even do the wringing. You'd have to send your clothes through this wringer thing. It was just two rollers, and the clothes would go between it, and that would wring them out.
Did you make your own soap?
I didn't, but Mother did. She would make soap in that big wash pot.
How did y'all do it?
That's part of the pig that you used. You would make it out of hog lard and lye. And I don't know how or why, but somehow that made soap. And it was, after you cooked it, then it would harden. And before it got too hard, you cut it up and you turned the pot over, and then you were able to slice it into pieces and let it finish drying. And you use that soap for everything. That's what you use for your baths. That's what you use for washing dishes. That's what you use for washing clothes. Whatever you needed soap for, that was it. And it was, I guess because of the lye content, It got stuff clean.
It could take off your fingerprints.
Probably. Probably did. I don't know.
So, did you have a telephone at your house?
No, I didn't have a telephone. Now, in our high school, there was a phone in the house that we lived in. And so that was the first phone. And it was a party line. And, so if the phone rang one long ring and two shorts, you knew it was you. If it was three longs or three shorts, it wasn't you. So don't answer. Or whatever the case was.
So it seems to me like you were a lot more rural up until high school.
I was very rural, even through high school. What I forgot to mention is that from the time I was big enough to walk, almost, we spent our time in the field. If it was planting time or chopping time, even as a young kid, when you're not big enough to do it, you go out with the family to the field and you stay at the end of the rows, and while they're working. That's where you spent your time, whether you were chopping or whether they were picking cotton or whatever.
So how many bags of cotton have you picked in your whole life?
Oh, I wish I had a nickel for each one. There's a bunch.
Did you have a radio at your house?
Yes, as I bet I can remember back to when I was about 5 years old. I remember us having a radio then, so I don't know when we got a radio, but it seemed back as far as I could remember, we always had a radio.
What kind of music was on?
If my dad had anything to do with it, it was country western. He loved, and I can't think of his name now. And it ain't Willie Nelson. I can't think of his name.
Where was the radio station located?
Well, I know that there was one in Temple, but the main one we listened was out of Dallas and Fort Worth area.
So
it would have, we sit around it to listen to the Lone Ranger and listen to Inner Sanctum, and that was a creepy something. I can't even. And those Western type things or whatever else, but there was, and then there were serials. There was even soap operas back there that I remember being on. I can't think of the name of them, but there was something that came on during the day and a lot of farm programs that my parents would listen to,
So how far away were you from Dallas?
From 150 miles.
Okay, so that's a pretty far stretch for the radio station.
It is, but I guess there weren't that many, and it was real strong. But, we could even get San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
And that's about the same distance,
So, did your family take pictures growing up? And if so, how did y'all do that?
Not too many, but we had a Kodak. That's what we called them back then. Our mother took some pictures of us and some of, with her sisters and brothers, and but not any of us much as a family. They were usually individuals.
What was your first job, and what were other common jobs that people had?
Well, my first job was working at a bank because I graduated. I went to Austin to school. I couldn't afford to go to college. I had a scholarship for I could have went to any church-related college like TCU or SMU or whatever. And I had a full scholarship for that. But I didn't know how I could live. It was only for the tuition. not for
housing.
housing.
Or the
right.
books.
And I, even, Baylor's 50 miles away, but I didn't know how, there was no way I could figure out how could live. But I wanted to go to school. So I finally settled on, I thought, well, if I can't, my desire was to be a teacher. But since I couldn't be a teacher, then I thought, well, if I like business and especially like bookkeeping, I enjoyed that in school a lot. I thought, okay, I'll just go to business school. At least I will have some kind of schooling for a career of some kind. And so I went to Austin, to Durham's Business College. And as I was almost through with that, I had already finished all my classes except one. The only one I hadn't finished. Oh, by the way, this is the big thing at that time, the business college, because you took classes like bookkeeping, spelling, filing, psychology, just stuff that you would need in shorthand. I don't even know if you know what that is, but back in the day, in offices, when a boss needed to write a letter, he would dictate it to a secretary and then she would type it. And in order for her to be able to take it quickly, there was something called shorthand that they used where you wouldn't have to write it word verbatim, And so that was the biggie. Anyway, I had finished everything but my shorthand. And I got a phone call when I was home one weekend from Austin, from my ex-superintendent at Buckos High School where I graduated, and said that she had gotten a call from the Citizens Bank here in Cameron that they were looking for a good employee and wanted to know if she had any suggestions, and she said she thought of me. And so she asked me if I was interested. Well, I was ready to come home by then because I was about through with the class. And so I said, yes, I'm interested. So I came home and went to work at the bank, first as a bookkeeper and then as a teller. And I stayed there for 5 years until I was pregnant with Connie. So I was there over 3 years after I married, or almost 4. But at that time, things were so different. The rule there was if you're pregnant, you can't work there. So I worked there till I was about 6 months pregnant. And then I retired from there.
What was the first car that you had?
Well, the first car was a 1956 Ford Fairlane. It was red and white. I bought it sometime, probably, I get 56, probably, I don't know if it's 56 or if it's into 57 when I bought it. I don't remember. I wished I knew.
Do you know how much it was?
Oh, maybe, probably new, and it wasn't totally new. It had very few miles on it, but new it was probably around 3,000. But I paid less than that because it was someone that had it, or it was a demonstrator. I can't remember, something like that.
How much did you make at the bank when you worked there?
Oh, I don't know what I started at. That I don't remember. I just remember that when we got married, that I was making about $55 a week. And that was good pay. Can you imagine?
So you had a red and white Ford.
Mm-hmm.
How did you put gas in it? Was it a self-service station? Did you pump it yourself? Or?
At that time, most all the station. We didn't have self-service stations. You went to a full-service station. So, either with Cecil working in a gas station, I'm sure he put a lot of gas in my car because I was living in Buckos and driving to Cameron.
So what was the first movie that you saw in theaters?
I can't remember for sure what the name was, but I know that as a kid, it's still at home, we went to see, and I think it was at a drive-in. We went to see movies like The Ten Commandments, and also my dad loved comedy, but it was like Mr. Ed, the Talking Horse, and we went to see that. And there was another one that we saw. We went to see more than one of it was kind of a hillbilly show. I can't even remember what the name of it was, but we might probably could name them on my fingers. All the movies I saw with the family, maybe 6 that I can recall.
So growing up when you were older and you started a date, where would you go on a date? Where was a popular place?
We usually went to Temple, but at that time Cameron had two theaters, plus they got a drive-in then, so they really had 3 there for a while. And I don't know about the first movie I remember seeing here in Cameron was, it was a musical. It was about, what is the name of it? It was a trapeze actor, but I can't think of the name of the movie. I went with my cousins. Now, sometimes my cousins would come, and most of my cousins were older, and so we'd go to the movie on Sunday afternoon. But on a date, we most of the time went to Temple because there was the Arcadia there, which was at that time a nice theater that you went to. When you went to the Arcadia, that was, you were going first class. And then afterward, you'd go to a drive-in, where they had the car hops and get you a drink or a Coke or a hamburger or whatever, That would be the main entertainment.
Where would you go to get lunch with your friends?
At work?
Or would you go out for lunch or go out for dinners, or was it mostly dates, or did everyone cook at home?
No, everybody cooked at home. Even when I was in high school, my parents went to Buckos on Saturday night to get groceries. There's certain things you didn't make on the farm, like flour and sugar and stuff, and so you would go to town. But on Saturday nights, you would go to town because they would get their groceries. And when we went, oftentimes we would get a quarter from our parents, and we would go to the movie because there'd always be a Western on, and you could go to the movie and have a popcorn and a drink for a quarter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, growing up and when you were older, did you ever smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol?
Nope. It just wasn't done in my circles.
Okay. So other groups did?
There really wasn't that much of it at that time.
Okay.
I don't know why, but even as I think back in high school, I can't think of any that it wasn't a big thing then. But it now there were those that were going to the SPJST halls and stuff were drinking.
What is that?
That was the dance halls.
Okay.
SPJST is just one of the. It's an insurance group, but they have these dance halls, And, when I did go to one of those or whatever, but I still didn't drink. I just didn't care for it. My dad drank, and I didn't like it, and I just didn't want it. It's not like we didn't have it around.
You chose not to.
Exactly.
And you said primarily because of your father?
Probably. But I just didn't like the taste of it. I thought beer was awful. And that's what he drank.
So, growing up, did your family go on vacations?
Sure, right down to the cotton patch. and on top of that, we were looking forward to September because school was going to start and we'd get out of the cotton patch. But most of the time we weren't through. And you know what my dad did? He made us miss. We could go the first day of school and get our books and our lessons. And then he'd make us stay at home for a week and try to finish up. And then we had to go catch up.
And that was pretty common? The teacher was okay with it?
Evidently, we weren't the only ones that did it,
So everyone had to get their books and lessons and finish up on the farm.
Yep.
To get back to school.
Because, they were trying to get the cotton out.
Yeah. So did you play any sports or do any activities?
I played sports. I played basketball. I played baseball or softball. And mainly basketball in high school.
Oh, cheer?
And I was a cheerleader. So I even had the honor of being the, instead of a homecoming queen, we had a football sweetheart that you crowned at one of the games. And so I even had that honor in my senior year, I believe.
That's cool. So it seems like we've learned a lot about how you grew up in your past. I want to focus more just 3 last questions. Okay. Now that you're a little older and you have more knowledge and more life experience. I guess 3 questions. First one, if you had $10 million, what would you do with it?
I am sure that I would use some of it to bless my family. And then I would use a lot of it for doing something to further the gospel.
And speaking of the gospel, what is your favorite Bible verse?
I'm not sure. I have so many favorites.
All right, what are some of your favorites then?
Well, I like to live is Christ, but to die is gain. I like, I don't know. I mean, like in Psalm 91, there's several verses that I like. I mean, I could quote the whole psalm to you, but anyway, I like the one that says that there shall no plague, no harm come near your dwelling, or any plague come near your door. This is verses that I stand on for me and my family. That, like now, we've got the coronavirus going on, and I pray that every day for me and my family, that we will be kept safe. And I use Psalm 91 as my basis.
So, last question. Mm-hmm. What is your best piece of advice for a long and happy life?
Well, I think with me, that I would say when you put God first in your life, you're going to have a happy life. That was the case with me. Now, I might add that I had always been in church all of my life, but I didn't actually get born again till I was 27 years old. even though I was in church and doing all the churchy things. Wasn't saved. Because I didn't understand salvation, that it's a gift. I thought I knew Jesus was my Savior, that He died for my sins, but I didn't know that I thought I had to help Him. And I had to do certain things, which would have been works. And yet the scripture says that it is a gift of God. Salvation by faith is a gift, and it's a gift. And so, and as far as once we're saved, I think one of the things that has blessed our lives, as Cecil and I were saved probably close to the same time. I was saved, and then within a year he was saved. Both of us saved at home. Just us and God. All we did was, finally realize that we needed a Savior, that we couldn't do it. And asking Him to save us and come into our lives. And anyway, He did. But as we look back on our life, the thing that we have decided that was a super blessing to us was the fact that because I was trying to earn my way into heaven, I was doing everything the Bible said you should do, reading the Bible, praying, teaching, whatever, everything, tithing. So as soon as I went to work, the very first day, very first paycheck, I tithed, even though I was wanting to pay off my school loan. But I started tithing. Well, then when we got married, I was tithing, and Cecil just went along with it. Well, it wasn't long after we were married that it came to a test, and Cecil found out, he saw, well, do you have time for this or not?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
He was going to barber school, and he was buying gas from the station that he worked at in 50-gallon barrels rather than going so that he could pump it at night when he came in and whatever. And we were going to have to pay for that 50-gallon gallon or whatever, how many gallon, I don't know. Whatever it was like $50. This bill was coming up. So Sunday we got ready to go to church. I had my, I'm making, only income we're having is mine, my $55, remember? So my $5 was going to church. And he said, I don't think you need to put that in the offering this week, because then we're not going to have anything to eat on or to buy anything, like he had to buy his lunch at barber school and whatever. And anyway, long story short, somehow I convinced him to go ahead, and no, I couldn't do that. I might lose my standing there or something, but we gave that $5. And in the next 2 or 3 days, we got a check in the mail for $55 from some unknown source that I still hadn't figured out where it came from. And anyway, he just knew that was a sign from God that I'm going to take care of you if you do the right thing. Put me first, and then I'll take care of you. So that is my other piece of advice, is tithe, because you can't outgive God. And He doesn't just bless you monetarily, but look at the blessings that we have gleaned as a family. And, just there's other blessings besides just monetary. Anyway.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you.
Yeah. And let's see, what is today's date?
It is the 9th?
Yeah.
Of January 2021.
Yes.
It is.
All right, well.
And I am 83 years old.
You look like you're 20.
Yeah, right. You lied. Bring it on. Bring it on.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Can you edit it?
Yep.
Hmm?